And what a journey we're on. As I began to reflect on this passage, now that we're reading it for the fourth week, I found myself asking the question, who do we walk with? Who do we talk with? And I began to think of some of the conversations I have been in recently. So let me review some of those conversations because I think they help us to look at and think about who do we walk with as St. Aidan's United Church. We walk with our region. So, when we started to talk about the amalgamation and the merger, as I like to say, with Cadbury Bay, I've had I don't know how many conversations with people who say, well, what's a regional church? I don't get what a regional church is. And so I began to think about, why is that so confusing for people? And I think it is because we may not recognize how neighborhood we are. We may not be able to kind of see that. So, for example, when we're a neighborhood church, we're kind of active in the community in which we're located. And we don't need to think much further. We're connected to our place because we have relationships there. But for example, when Garden City Church closed, did we think, that's an area we should ensure there's a church presence in? No, because this is our neighborhood. A regional church, and what's being proposed is that there would be a united church who takes as its mandate to think about all the various communities in the region of Saanich, who will say, what action do we need to take so that the Garden City area feels still well serviced by the United Church of Canada? Do you see that? It would give us a chance to relate to the people on the Saanich Council and to hear overall, what are the issues that are happening in Saanich that call for an orchestrated response? It also is based on, I don't know, do any of you play the futures in the stock market? No. So, in the future, we can see the trajectory of United Church congregations. Too many are aging, becoming weaker, and poorer, unable to fix up their buildings. So we see that, and we say now is the time for a strong, well-resourced United Church to come and start to learn how to think bigger, broader, wider. It's not a skill we'll learn overnight. But a regional church will look at all the communities and the neighborhoods within Saanich and say, do they have easy access to a United Church presence? A small group, a pub conversation, whatever. It will be to think broader. So we're already starting that a little bit, and Cadborough Bay, in our merger talks, we're trying to think bigger. We've got 4 summer students coming. Now we could say, wasn't St. Aidan's smart to apply for summer students? And look at how well-resourced we're going to be over the summer. Or we could say, wow, St. Aidan's has this resource of 4 students, and we can use them for our ministry, but we can offer them to other United Churches who also want to do some things this summer, but they can't because they don't have the personnel. And so as I think about it, and as we stand right now, the students are going to do 2 camps here. They're going to do 1 camp at Cadborough Bay. We've offered, and I'm not sure if they're going to do a camp at Oak Bay. But the weeks they don't have a camp, they're going to go down to First Met and run a barbecue in their parking lot for the community, so that we help First Met get integrated into their community. Do you see the difference? Like it's a mental shift, switch, to think bigger, to think as a region, we're comprised of many neighborhoods who need the presence, whether they know it or not, of an open-minded, open-hearted, open-doored community. So who do we walk with? We walk with the region of Saanich, or we will in the merger. That's the vision. We walk with our other area churches, so that whatever happens as the place of the Christian church, the mainline church, changes radically, we still feel like we have something strong and organized to be present for people. We walk with people who have a progressive spirit. You know, I served a 3-point charge when I was just starting out in ministry in Saskatchewan. And the smallest church was Perry, Saskatchewan. It's disappeared now. But they had had a church split between fundamentalists and progressives in their very small community. And so they had 25 members, whether it was the most ordinary Sunday of the year or if it was Christmas. Because those are the people who had decided for an open-minded, open-hearted approach. It became clear to them that they weren't going to survive. And they had always been a church that reached out to the community and farther afield, and once they decided, you know what, we can't make it, somebody phoned and offered or wanted to borrow their chairs. It was a community group or somebody. And the person in charge said, no. No. Now, they had always loaned their chairs. But in their fear and their sadness and their disappointment, there was this tendency to get angry with the world, to get angry with the community. Well, the person felt awful that they had said that. So they went to talk to some of their friends, and as you can imagine, it didn't take very long before there were several people in the kitchen talking this over. And they made the decision there that they would close as they had lived, that they would be open-hearted, generous. It was one of the most spiritual moments I've experienced, and I've experienced a lot of them. But it was the community saying, we won't let our circumstances dictate how we act as people of faith. So they phoned up the group and said, of course you can visit our, you can have our chairs. You can borrow our chairs. In this time of change, the natural feeling can be to get begrudging. We have committed ourselves in these merger talks to have a progressive spirit, to have one that will, in the midst of tremendous change, do our level best to remain open-hearted. Non-competitive. It's a stance of somehow embracing what is and what could be our future. So we walk with people of a progressive spirit, of a gracious spirit, because they remind us how to be and how to live in the world. We walk with each other. Margaret's going to come and talk about small groups. You know, I think we're just like the Emmaus Road people. We talk and we walk together. We share our stories. They move us to tears, to laughter. They tell us who we are. If we haven't heard each other's life stories, we haven't walked together. The saddest thing I often think in a community is when we do a funeral and a number of people come up and say, we do a funeral of a person who's been in our midst for a long time, and we say, oh, I didn't know that about them. Oh, I wish I would have known that. We would have had a different conversation. I think that is the saddest thing. Because we have all these opportunities to tell each other our stories, to speak of what our lives have been. And we often fritter them away, talking about the latest task. So, Margaret will talk about small groups, but we walk with each other. And this will be a vehicle for us to share not tasks, but our journeys, our hopes and dreams. I got to watch my time, because we walk with a number of people. We walk with people from other cultures. We walk with people for whom English isn't their first language. I think we're going to try to have more people who read Scripture to us in their still learning English. Whenever we suggest this, people say, well, let's have them read it in their own language because that's quite harmonious often. But you see, when people from another culture come to our church service, they sit on the edge of their pew trying to pick up the few words of English that they know. It is hard work. So I'm quite willing to say that those of us who speak English really well, it'll be okay for us while Scripture's being read for us to sit on the edge of our seat trying to catch the word. Right? One of the things we're trying to do in being an intercultural congregation is to develop our sensitivity so that we do not make people who are new to Canada, we don't make them do all the heavy lifting of relationship, of coping. Does that make sense? Do you see, these are all mental and emotional and spiritual shifts. Well, I have to stop here. I wish there was more time to talk about how we might walk with First Nations people, how we might walk with the homeless and the refugees. I am convinced that if we embrace this openness as our spiritual journey, there will be moments when we will feel that we are one with God's hope for the world. There will be aha moments when we say, I got it. It was just like my eyes were open for the first time and I could see something from another's point of view. This is a hard work journey. I don't want to say it's not. But it is so well worth it. So, thank you for listening.